Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Alana Silber, and I'm the Executive Director of Sharsheret, the National Jewish Breast and Ovarian Cancer Organization. It is so good to see so many of you. I know some people are still logging on, and but we have to get started. For those of you, we've had people on for the last 20 minutes, so I guess the excitement is building. It's really good to see you all, and hope you're all feeling well. It's a great opportunity to bring Sharsheret's community together, which is really what Sharsheret is all about. Sharsheret is Hebrew for the word chain, and all of you are part of the Sharsheret chain. And as we all stay sheltered at home, we're all getting ready for the Jewish holiday of Shavout just next week, and it's really wonderful to celebrate together. Many of you made a generous donation to Sharsheret tonight, and I really want to thank each and every one of you. The funds you raised are more critical than ever. With the onset of COVID-19, the effects on our mental health has been tremendous. And that's where Sharsheret steps in. Sharsheret is on the front lines of mental health for Jewish women and families facing breast cancer and ovarian cancer. So as soon as the pandemic hit, Sharsheret's team of social workers and a genetic counselor were ready and able to address the issues and concerns of so many in our community. So I want to thank you for your generous gifts that's enabling us to continue to do the work that we do. So if you or someone you know is struggling or facing breast cancer and ovarian cancer at this time, I encourage you to tell them to reach out to Sharsheret. We can help. I want also to be mindful of everyone's privacy. If you'd like to participate tonight anonymously, you can stop your video and you can change your name, and the directions are in the chat. There are also hundreds of you registered for tonight, and we want to make sure that everyone can hear the presentation. So if you have questions or anything at all about Sharsheret, about the presentation, type them in the chat and I will bring them forward so we can all hear your question and we can all hear the presentation. But you're all on mute to make sure that everything can be heard. Tonight, you're all here to support Sharsheret, but I know you're really also here for our featured expert. We are so excited to have Naomi Elberg tonight. She's also known as Naomi TGIS. Naomi is much more than a challah baker. She is not just a challah baker, a babka baker. She has a lot of incredible recipes, and I encourage you to check out her Instagram, Naomi_TGIS. So now it's my pleasure to welcome the star of this evening, Naomi Elberg.
Hi. Okay, I'm all set. I'm good. I'm unmuted. I'm good. Okay, I'm very untech savvy, so I had to have my husband on standby to make sure that I'm unmuted and I'm here. Okay, so I like to keep my demos interactive. I don't like just talking to myself, so I want to talk to you, get to know you, answer your questions, all that stuff. So I have my recipe. Hopefully you printed it out. You can put it in a sleeve protector. You can put it in a gallon-sized Ziploc bag. They are great for just putting these papers in, and that way they won't get greasy or wet or whatever. So I like to start off by going through what we're going to be using. You could have made the dough in advance. That's one of the options if you're comfortable. If you're not comfortable making dough, this is your first time, you can make it all together. Or you can just watch me do it so you know what you're doing and you can make it yourself. But we're gonna go through everything and I'll explain everything. So we're gonna do a small batch babka recipe. I'm not gonna be using a mixer because I don't want this to be daunting and I don't want you to get scared that you can't do it by hand. So we start off with a mixing bowl. Okay, I'm using a glass one so that you can see what's going on. A strong spatula. Honestly, I don't use a spatula when it comes to the dough. I sort of just go in with my hands, which is why I have gloves on. It's great because this is all in order. Gloves are not just for sanitary reasons, but they create a barrier between your natural body heat and the dough. Some people are naturally hot-blooded. So if you're naturally hot-blooded and in general, you are warm, your body temperature is going to affect how the dough feels. So sometimes, if you actually mix your dough in, let's say, a mixer, and then you go in to feel it, it'll feel sticky, right? But if you put gloves on, all of a sudden dough won't feel sticky because you have that barrier that's preventing your natural body heat from making that dough feel stickier than it really is. Okay, measuring cups, wet and dry. This is a wet measuring cup, all right? This is a dry measuring cup. The discrepancy is very like minimal, but when you're using, you know, let's say a lot of water in a recipe, that little minimal difference really does add up. So dry, which is for like flour, rice, all that fun stuff. Wet, so milk, oil, water. Okay, measuring spoons. This is a tablespoon, but you get the idea. The tablespoons. A knife for portioning dough. I like to use a serrated knife. You don't want to rip your dough. You sort of ruin that gluten that forms when you're ripping your dough. The less you handle your dough, the easier your dough will be to work with, which we'll get into. Ziploc style quart-sized freezer bags or storage bags. Basically, quart-sized bags. Why quart-size? What I like to do after I make my dough is divide it up so it can rise. I like to have my dough slow rise in the fridge, or I freeze it right away. If I use a sandwich bag, it's going to pop open when it rises. So I like to use a bag that has a little bit more room, so I use the quart-sized bag. And also, the freezer bags are just more durable than, you know, than the storage ones. Okay, non-stick cooking spray. You can use that for your pans. 2 to 3 aluminum loaf pans for baking. So these are the ones that I have. These are 2-pound pans. There are bigger ones. I just happen to like this size. You can use real metal. I'm just using aluminum. Parchment paper. So I have these over here. This is actually half a sheet pan size, and I just cut them in half. So you'll see what we're going to do with that. And a rolling pin. So when it comes to the rolling pin, I like to use a metal rolling pin. Wood ones are fine too. I just find that this is less, nothing really sticks to this one so much. Plus, a great tip for the summer weather is you can keep this in the fridge. Metal gets cold. So chances are if your rolling pin is cold, it will stick to the dough way less. The dough will stick to it way less. Okay, so we're gonna go on to the recipe. Are we good? Thumbs up, that's my thing. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Okay, I only see like 2 people at a time. So from those 2 people, thumbs up. All right, so again, like if there's any questions, whatever, there's a moderator, they'll pop in. So bowl, 1 1/4 cups of warm water. You can use milk, you can use non-dairy milk replacement, almond milk, rice milk, etc. Shavout, feel free to use, you know, whole milk, and then you can, let's say 3/4 cup of whole milk, and then 1/2 cup of warm water just to thin it out. But milk or cream or any of that stuff, anything that's not water will make your dough nice and make it really rich. But feel free to use whatever you have on hand.
Naomi,
Also,
Naomi,
yeah.
I have just like a few questions. Can I just ask them as you get to this?
Sure.
One question came in, is there a substitute for vanilla paste or vanilla sugar?
You don't have to put anything in. I just do it for extra flavor. You could use almond extract if you want. You can use anything. You can use a little bit of alcohol.
Okay. And
the
then,
recipe is a guideline, so really you can adjust it to however you want.
And now a question as related a little bit to Jewish law. Would you have to separate for challah because it's challah dough?
Not if you're not using 5 pounds of flour. So this recipe here is going to use about 5 cups, but if you're using a full bag of flour, then yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, as the questions come in, if you don't mind, I'll interrupt you, but if it's not a good time, you can also tell me.
Okay, so just, yeah, so we're good to continue?
Go.
Okay, so I have my water here, then I'm gonna put in my sugar. I have 1/2 cup of sugar. Some people like to put in a little bit of sugar at a time. I just dump the whole thing in. It's all pre-measured, so I don't forget anything because I've done that in the past. This is some vanilla sugar. I make my own vanilla sugar with granulated sugar and vanilla beans or dried ground vanilla beans. So that's why there's little black specks, and I just like how they turn out, how they show up in the dough. So I'm just going to toss that in there. Again, this is optional. Just adds, you can use vanilla extract also if you want. Next, I have yeast. I have 4 1/2 teaspoons of yeast, dry yeast.
What type of yeast?
So I use dry. This is, you can use instant or you can use active dry. You don't really have to proof your yeast, meaning you don't have to, like, some recipes just call for, you know, just dumping everything together and then, you know, going on however. But what I like to do is I like to ensure that my yeast is alive. So by proofing my yeast, meaning I'm adding the dry yeast to the sugar and the water and mixing it, I'm going to see little air bubbles appear and it's going to rise to the surface. That's how I know that my yeast is alive. So there's nothing worse than like making, let's say, a batch of challah or a batch of babka and not having your yeast be viable. Then your dough doesn't rise, and then you're worried that, you know, something wrong with the yeast. So always just take 2 seconds of your time to just proof it. And again, this is just, it's either instant or active. It's one of the two. But like I said, I proof them. So I put it in there. I'll just go in there with this little spatula.
Rapid yeast or should use regular yeast?
Pardon?
Can you use the rapid rise or just use regular yeast?
Doesn't make a difference. Active, instant, rapid rise, they're all the same. They're same measurements, all that stuff. So it doesn't matter, whatever kind of dry yeast you can find. Okay, so I don't know if you can see this well, but you might be able to. That's why I used a metal clear bowl. The yeast sort of rises to the top, all right? You start to get little air bubbles that form at the surface. Can you see this? But it's rising up. If your yeast is dead, it sinks to the bottom, and it's just a very sad, murky looking, you know, murky looking water. But basically what's happening now is all the yeast is sort of rising up to the top. I'm getting little air bubbles, which means that my yeast is alive. So yeast is a dormant enzyme. You're adding it to the water, which kind of wakes it up, and it starts to feed off the sugar. And that's how yeast grows. It starts to eat the sugar that's in your bowl here. And also flour has starch, which turns into sugar, and that's what your yeast feeds off of, and that's why your dough rises. So some people like to wait like 5 minutes. They like to see a nice, you know, head of foam on top. Once I see those air bubbles and I know that my yeast is viable and that it's, you know, it looks alive, I just continue on. So we have that. Let's see what else we have. Okay. Oh, another thing. This over here, this is a yeast spoon. It says 2 1/4 teaspoons. So a packet of yeast, sometimes you can buy them in like a packet of 3. Each packet weighs 2 1/4 teaspoons. But I just find it so much more economical, and I like those bricks of yeast, like they're like not freeze dried. You know what I mean? They look like a brick. You cut it open, the air comes in, and it stores indefinitely. You can keep it in your freezer, you can keep it in your fridge. Don't keep it in your pantry; it won't last indefinitely in your pantry. But anytime you have a recipe that says, let's say, a packet of yeast, or 2 packets of yeast, or 3 packets of yeast, one of these spoons equals a packet of yeast. Or you can just write down 1 packet of yeast is 2 1/4 teaspoons.
What if someone's using fresh yeast?
I don't know. I don't really work with fresh yeast, but there is a conversion. I just don't know it offhand. I have it written down. I just don't use it often. Or I think I've used it maybe a handful of times, but I usually just use the dry yeast.
And what size eggs are you using there?
Large. You can use extra large. The only difference will be like, it's just the amount of flour that you're adding. But as we get to it, you're going to notice that there's no specific, you'll never use the same amount of flour twice in a recipe. And that's why there's always this like ballpark number of 4 to 5 cups, which we're going to get to very shortly. So
one more thing about the yeast, if you keep it in your fridge, do you have to take it out in advance so it's not so cold?
No, I just use it straight from the fridge.
Okay,
so I have 2 eggs.
You said something about that the package of yeast was the correct amount, 1 envelope?
So I'm using 4 1/2 teaspoons. That would be 2 envelopes of yeast.
2 envelopes, okay.
Yeah, but I don't love the envelopes because they tend to not be so, because they're not, the other like those bricks of yeast, they're just more shelf stable, and the ones in the envelope they're not always the most dependable. So I like to just buy like the jars or those bricks. It's just easier. So 2 eggs, I'm just putting them in here. And what do we have next? Okay, so that is our fat of choice. You can use margarine, you can use butter, you can use betterine. Betterine is another product on the market. It is a margarine/butter substitute. It is coconut based. It has coconut, arrowroot, and a little bit of soy. There's no flavor, so that means it's refined. So no flavor, no smell, but it is coconut based. Or you can use oil, but in honor of Shavuot, I'm using butter because everyone just happens to love butter. No one argues about the butter. They argue about the margarine. They don't argue about the butter. unsalted butter, and I softened it. I had it sitting out. You can put it in the microwave. Oops. And then that's just gonna go in here. Doesn't look so attractive, but it's delicious. Okay. So that's in here. All right. You can mix that up if you want to, but like I said, I'm gonna get in there with my hands soon. Okay, then we have the flour. So again, you'll see on the recipe, it says 4 to 5 cups of flour. Why is that? Because depending on the brand of flour that you're using, depending on the temperature, the humidity level, flour absorbs moisture in the air. So if you are in a climate where it is hot, you will use more flour. If it's raining outside, you will use more flour. If you are living somewhere where it's hot and rainy, you will use more flour. You'll also probably notice if you bake challah in the winter, you tend to use less flour than you do in the summer. I like to use bread flour or a high gluten flour, or I use this one. This is Wonder Mills, it's all-purpose flour. But the difference between this all-purpose flour and like a different brand is that it's triple sifted. So it's very light, and I just happen to like working with it. And I recently started using it in my challah, and I get very good results.
Naomi, can you go back to the oil for a second and the butter?
Sure.
Because there's some confusion. The recipe says half a cup of oil. Is it
It's either half a cup of oil or 1.5 sticks, which is 12 tablespoons. I mean, 1.5 sticks or 12 tablespoons of unsalted butter or margarine.
And then what's the oil conversion? If you
It would be half a cup of oil.
Okay, so half a cup of oil is, and so it's a different measurement if you're using oil or if you're using.
Yeah.
Okay. And one more
So,
question.
yeah, 1
about
stick
the
plus
water. If you're using a substitute, does it also have to be warm?
If what?
But if you're using a liquid to substitute, does it also have to be warm?
No, I just melted the the butter, because I want to incorporate it easier. If it's cold, it's not going to work into the flour and the dough easily.
Okay. And where did you get that flour? Do you know?
This I got at my local grocery store, but a lot of the kosher supermarkets have it. They're also on Instagram, Wonder Mills flour.
Okay. And what's your refrigerator's temperature? People want to know, because if they do the
My
dough at
fridge, it's cold, but it's not too cold. It's not warm. I mean, keep it in your fridge. That's really, if your fridge works, then that's good. I mean, if it's rising rapidly, then you should check the thermostat, the thermometer, or whatever on your fridge. But I don't know what the temperature of my fridge is. It's like setting 3, which is like one of the colder ones.
Right. And the question about the warm wasn't about the butter, it was about the milk or the water. Do those have to be warm?
So you could do it warm. If you're unsure about temperature, you can do it at room temperature. The truth is, it's pretty impossible to kill your yeast. The only thing that'll really kill it is like very, very, very hot water. Cold water is fine. It'll just slow down the growth, which is why like when we rise our dough, I put it in the fridge so it slows it down.
Okay.
But it could be room temperature or it could be warm.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Nope, we're good. Oh, someone wants to know, can we use a Bosch?
Yeah, for sure. I just didn't want this to be like daunting. I don't want people to be like, oh, so I need a Bosch to make a babka, or I need a KitchenAid to make a babka. You don't. You need hands. Preferably with gloves, but either way, you need a mixing bowl.
Okay, I think we're good.
Okay. Okay. Also, if you're allergic to eggs, you could really just leave them out. I know everyone's just like silent about that one, but you really can. Okay.
Oh, wait, one more question about your Wonder
Sure.
Mill all-purpose flour. If we
Sure.
use non-Wonder Mill all-purpose flour or bread flour, do they need to sift it?
No, you don't need to. I don't sift my flour. This just happens to be triple sifted already for you. It's actually from Israel, product of Israel. Israel, they sift it. Pretty sure. Yeah, product of Israel. It's quality distribution, quality frozen foods. All right, so I'm gonna start with, I can't guarantee you it's gonna be 5 cups. So what I always say is start with less. You can always add more. You can take away. So I have 1 cup, 2 cups. Let's start with 3 here. Okay. I'll have another cup on hand. All right. So you'll notice that my bowl is on top of a, I think it's silicone. It's a nonstick pastry mat. And the reason I use it, you'll see, is because it prevents your dough from sticking. That's number one. And I tend to use less flour when I have this. It also contains my mess, but we're gonna get to that momentarily. Oh, and the salt. Hold on, did not forget the salt. Right here. All right, I put the salt in after I add the flour, okay? I don't like to add the salt to the yeast. The purpose of the salt not only is it for flavor, but it also slows down the rising process so that your dough doesn't rise too quickly. So I have half a teaspoon of pink Himalayan sea salt. I use pink Himalayan sea salt because there is a higher mineral content in the salt, which sort of acts as a little vitamin booster. I'm actually gonna change my gloves and put on gloves that fit better so that they don't fall off while I'm mixing. Try to get gloves that fit you. Well, they should be snug. I can't get the Costco gloves because they're sort of, not available right now, but these are okay. They're right. So what I'm doing is
it okay to
what?
Sorry, sea salt or kosher salt?
So yeah, you could use sea salt or kosher salt. If you're going to use kosher salt, use about a teaspoon. The granules are bigger than kosher salt, or use 3/4 of a teaspoon. Yeah, use 3/4 of a teaspoon of kosher salt just because the granules are bigger than the sea salt. Don't use iodized salt. That's not real salt. It's saltier than what salt is supposed to be, but sea salt is fine too. So what I'm doing here is I'm sort of mimicking what the dough hook would do, and I'm working in a counterclockwise situation here. All right, what I'm looking to do is make a cohesive dough. This right here, not really a cohesive dough. It's getting there. What I'm looking to do is clean off those sides of the bowl. I just added an extra cup. And I'm just gonna work this in. The beauty of this mat also is that once my dough comes together in here, if it's not taking in all the flour that's in the bowl, I'm just gonna move the bowl out of the way and put this hunk of dough on the mat and work it in that way. Okay, you see how that's coming together?
An announcement, Naomi. There are a lot of questions coming in different ways. So
Sure.
what we're going to do is everyone put your questions into the chat, and at the end of the presentation, Naomi is going to answer all the questions. So just keep putting them in the chat and we'll go through them after. Thanks.
I will answer to the best of my ability.
Yeah, we have
Okay.
faith in you.
Do you see how this is sort of coming together? There's no magic way to knead. I don't need anything like by the book. I'm sort of just trying to work that flour into the dough and for the dough to not be so sticky. Okay, I'm actually gonna take it out of this bowl right now and put it on the mat in front of me. Put the bowl over there. Okay, so what I'm looking to do is make a nice smooth dough. So at this point, I'm just gonna start sprinkling on some flour and working it in like this. Okay. If you're mixing it, if you're kneading it by hand, it's going to require some patience. If you're doing it with a mixer, you're going to be kneading it far shorter than if you are by hand. Why is that? Because you don't have the horsepower of a mixer. So that's why you'll notice sometimes if you're kneading your dough with a mixer, the dough will be slightly smoother. And by slightly smoother, I mean usually much smoother, but once it rises, it'll be totally fine. Okay. So once my dough comes together like this, I like to leave it for a good 2-3 minutes and let it rest. All right. So that sort of just gives the gluten a chance to relax. It allows the flour to absorb whatever water is in the dough, and it gives you a chance to relax because kneading dough is tiring. So you'll notice that what I want you to do is if you're doing it along with me, once you get to this stage, I want you to feel the dough. I want you to cover it, and I want you to come back to it in 3 minutes. And I want you to see if you notice a difference between the dough from now and then 3 minutes from now. Do you want me to answer any questions in like a 2-3 minute span? Like,
Ask if you're not, do you hear me?
yeah.
Okay. Someone asked if you're not slow rising in the fridge, how long should it rise on the counter?
So there's no specific time. It really just depends on how warm your house is. It can go anywhere from half an hour to 2-3 hours, depending on the season, depending how warm your house is. You're looking for it to rise so it's double in size.
And do we need the salt?
Yeah.
Okay. And if you're using milk, is it 1 or 2%? And how much water with milk?
Whatever you want. So I'm using water, which is like the leanest of the lean. It depends how rich you want your dough to be. If you want to get really creative, you can use like vanilla, like a vanilla milkshake. You can use chocolate milk. You can use a little bit of like coffee creamer. If you're going to do a dairy, like now Shavuot is like a fun time to really, you know, play around with these fun ingredients. But it's totally up to you. You can go whole milk. I've done cream, like heavy cream, because I didn't have milk, and I thinned it out with water at one point.
Okay. I have 2 more questions. Do you cover the dough with a towel or plastic wrap?
Usually, so when I divide it, I usually just put it in a quart-size Ziploc bag.
Okay.
Like I divide it into 3. I'll usually get 2 or 3 babkas out of the dough. And then I have them rise in one of these. But you can just cover it with, I would do plastic wrap just because it sort of seals it in. And you don't want any of, you don't want any air to come in that's going to dry it out.
Okay. And this is an unrelated question, but for you.
Sure.
When will the TGIS all shook up products be available?
It's a great question. They're actually en route from Israel right now. Told you, they're coming directly from the shook. So they were blended and like created, and they are the highest quality of spices. So before Shavuot.
Great.
Okay. All right. So do you notice if there's any difference in my dough from like 2 minutes ago until now? It's much smoother. All right. You'll notice that also. You see how it's not even sticking to my mat? It's sort of like, just works really, it's very therapeutic. I really enjoy this part of the whole task. Once your dough comes together, once it rests, I'm gonna sprinkle a little bit more flour over here, not too much. Also, if you have a natural stone, if you have like a stone countertop or a pastry board, those are also great surfaces to work on because stone is naturally cool. And when you put your dough onto a naturally cool surface, your dough becomes less sticky all of a sudden. When you pair it with a pastry mat, it's like double bonus. So here's my dough. You can knead this for a good 5-10 minutes if you have the patience. We're gonna pretend I kneaded it for a good 5-10 minutes. So here's my dough, all right? So this here will make approximately 2 or 3 babkas. Approximately meaning it depends on how much flour that you ended up using. I think I ended up using, what did I use? 4 cups, 4 and a bit. So I was between the 4 and 5 cup. A couple weeks ago, I did a demo, I used about 5.5 cups. So again, it totally depends on, the environment that you're in. I'm gonna move this out of the way. All right, I have my dough here. So this is what I normally do. I make my dough. I usually have a kitchen scale, but I don't have to be exact, and you don't need one to be exact. And then what I do is I portion out my dough. So you can use a knife, or you can use something like this called a bench scraper. And what I'll do is I'll divide up my dough this way, all right? And you'll see how when you actually cut through your dough, you're not ruining it as opposed to doing this, right? There's a difference. It keeps everything nice and smooth. And again, the less you handle your dough, the easier your dough will be and will work with you nicely. And that's a question I get a lot. Why is your dough so smooth? I try to handle it as minimal as possible. So that's why I divide up my dough before it rises. If you're gonna let your dough rise all together as like one big ball, when it's ready to go, you're gonna deflate it. Then you're gonna divide it. But then you're gonna have to let your dough rest for a good like 10-15 minutes just to relax it. So I try to like make the process much easier and quicker. And I just divide it up in advance and make it into like a bowl, roll it into some flour, form it into like a disc like so. Okay. Then I take this is one that's already risen. This will go into here. I'll press out the air. Why will I press out the air? Because as your dough rises, it will begin to breathe. So if there's already air in the bag, it's going to pop open. If there's no air in the bag, it gives you that space for your dough to start rising. And then I'll put this in the fridge up to 24 hours. So minimum, I'd say 2-3 hours in the fridge, up to 24 hours. The reason I say up to 24 hours is because after 24 hours, there's no more sugar in the dough for the yeast to feed off of. And if there's nothing for it to feed off of, it can't keep growing. And if it can't keep growing, it's going to just overproof, and you'll get that strong yeast smell, and that'll be that. And then it's just gonna end up like a flat, sad pancake that's gonna just smell yeasty. Okay, so, or what you can do is you can actually just put this in the freezer directly. Halt the entire rising process, put it in the freezer, and then when you're ready to make babka, just take it out of the freezer and let it defrost in the fridge. And as a matter of fact, I made these yesterday morning, froze them, and then this morning I took it out of my freezer, put it in my fridge. It's defrosted throughout the day, and then about an hour before this demo, I took it out, and look at it. Look how smooth it is, and how easy it is to work with. So that's really the #1 tip I can give you is you have to have patience with this. And that's why I would sort of just do it in steps. So you have to let your dough really have that adequate rise time, and it should rest and relax. And then you'll end up with a really nice, smooth dough. Okay. So the magic of Zoom, I have this dough ready to roll out. And then we're gonna move on to everything else that we have here. So we have our fillings. Do you have any questions before we continue on?
There are a bunch of questions. I can go through them.
Sure.
Someone wants to know, how many minutes do you need it if you're using a Bosch?
So again, it depends on your dough. If it's I would say, if your dough feels really dry for some reason, I usually end up needing it for like 5 to 7 minutes. Sometimes you really just have to you want it to be nice and elastic. Usually I would say 3 minutes, but if you really need to loosen your dough and you need to get it to be smooth and elastic, I would say 5 to 7.
And what do you do if your dough is very sticky?
Add more flour.
Okay. Do you divide your dough for challah before it rises?
Yeah, sometimes I do. It depends.
And how many packages do you make from this dough?
How many babkas?
Okay, maybe. Wait, Ellen answered 2 to 3 babkas come from that?
Yeah. Just depends on how much flour you're using.
Okay, and if it rose overnight in the fridge, can then you put it into the freezer to use another time?
No, once it rises in the fridge, that's it. It's ready to use. If you want to put it in the freezer, then you do it right after you form the dough.
Okay, someone made their
Your dough needs 2 rises.
Someone made their dough yesterday morning, and they kept in the fridge till now. Can they work with it, or would you rather, or just better not?
So they have to sort of just see how their dough is. It shouldn't smell too yeasty. You'll notice it if it rises or not. You can give it a try. It also depends on how warm or cold your fridge is. So the colder the environment, the slower the rise.
And if someone forgot sugar, does that ruin the dough?
I would make it with sugar. I mean, you could try.
Okay.
Never say never.
Okay. And then someone said if they did not make the dough in advance and they're doing it during the demo, should they not complete making the babka during this demo?
I would let it rise. Let it rise overnight in the fridge. Watch what I'm doing now, and then tomorrow morning you can, shape your dough and form your babka.
Okay, thanks.
Good, we're up to date?
Yeah, pretty much. And one more question. Is this the same dough you use for babkas, for your chocolate babkas and chocolate kakash?
It's a different dough, actually. Similar, but different.
Okay.
Okay. So,
I have one question. Is it okay for it to just rise a few hours in the fridge? Does it have to?
Yeah. I had mentioned that a little earlier. I would say minimum 2 to 3 hours. Good?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so I have my metal rolling pin. I have my dough. We're gonna go on to the fillings. So I have my my recipe in front of me. So I give you a bunch of different ideas. So because of Shavuot, there's a cheese babka filling, which is delicious. And how it works with each babka is I start off with a wet, once I roll it out, I put a layer of a wet base. So wet base is like a cheese filling, chocolate filling. You can use lotus butter. You can use anything you want. You could use Nutella. You can use peanut butter. It's really, that's your base. So anything spreadable that you can put on, that is your base. And then on top of that, I like to put something for like texture or crunch. So I have like chocolate sprinkles, and I have chocolate chips. I have Oreo cookies, really anything that you like. You can use nuts. This is white chocolate. And then on top, to sort of seal everything in, there is a dry powder, okay, which we're going to get into the whole entire thing, but I'm just going over those. So for Shavuot, there is a dairy babka filling. So it is 8 ounces of whipped cream cheese, half a cup of granulated sugar, a tablespoon of vanilla bean paste or vanilla sugar, and an egg yolk. For a richer filling, I like to use mascarpone and the whipped cream cheese. And same thing, same amount of sugar, same amount of vanilla, and 1 egg yolk. However, I did something a little different. I was playing around, and it ended up being really delicious. I'll tell you what I did. So what I did was I used 1 container of the whipped cream cheese. You can write this down. 1 container of mascarpone. They have at Trader Joe's. Or you can use half a container of whipped cream cheese and half a container of mascarpone. 1 cup of sugar, okay, because I'm doubling the amount that I use. So I did 1 8-ounce container of whipped cream cheese, 1 8-ounce container of mascarpone, 1 cup of sugar. I did the vanilla bean paste, and instead of the egg yolk, I used a packet of some vanilla pudding. And it really took that flavor to a whole other level. It made it so much thicker, and I liked it a lot. Plus, there's like a bonus cheese filling here. It's on the next page. It's the easy strawberry cheesecake. So you can follow the same steps, but instead of using regular cream cheese, I use strawberry cream cheese. So I think this one is from Walmart, but I know Philadelphia makes one. Any berry cheesecake. So I followed that recipe, and it's delicious. So I did a package of the cream cheese, the strawberry one, half a cup of sugar. I did vanilla bean paste, and then I did 4 tablespoons of some vanilla pudding. And it's super thick, and it's delicious. I got beyond. I can't even describe it to you because it's very exciting just how yummy it is. So we're going to start. We're going to do a cheese filling one, and then then I'll explain about the other fillings we got going on. So because my dough had all that time to rise, my dough is going to be very cooperative, which is always very impressive, even to me. So I'm just rolling it into something that looks similar to a rectangle. There's no specific shape, and there's no specific thickness. I say as thin as you can get it without it ripping. And again, something that resembles a rectangle. Sometimes it looks like, oblong, whatever. As long as it's cooperative and rolls out nicely. And it's a really good workout too. But you'll notice because my dough had that time to rise, it's going to be extra cooperative. And that will give me that ability to roll it out as thin as I can. Any questions while I'm doing this?
Yeah, question.
Sure.
What mat are you using, and where can we get that?
So this is from the Pepper Mill in Brooklyn, and I pay for my mats, and I love them. It's not cheap, but it's the best mat that I've used. It's called the Roulpat, ROULPAT, and this is the extra large one. But it stays firmly on my counter, and it travels well. Just the only tip is don't cut through it.
Okay. Someone wants to know if you can.
And they ship, because I just ordered a new one. What?
Can you repeat the exact recipe that you made with the strawberry, or maybe send it to Shar and we'll post that?
Yeah, I could do that.
Okay, thanks. And then with the, is the pudding powder instead of the egg yolk?
Yeah.
Okay, and how much of the pudding mix? I think you said it was that 4 tablespoons, was that?
For the strawberry one or the cheese one, regular one?
I don't know.
I'll send you the recipes.
Okay, yeah, I think it's good if you get that and then we can post it, we could share it with everyone who's been on, we'll do all this.
Yeah, no
We're
problem.
gonna send a follow-up.
It was sort of like a last minute development and it was just like so good. Okay, so as you see over here, my dough, it's not a perfect rectangle, but it's similar to a rectangle. And it's pretty much as thin as it's gonna get. If your edges are very thin and your middle is thick, roll the middle. If your middle is nice and thin, but your edges are thick, roll out your edges. Good? We're good? Okay. So I have my dough over here. And we'll start with should we start strawberry or should we start, you know what, we'll do strawberry because I'm very excited about that. Okay. This over here is an offset spatula, okay? This one I think is from Amazing Savings, but you can get them really anywhere. Although I don't know if anywhere is open, so Amazon. It's just, you don't even need a specific spatula. You can use just a regular any spatula that you have or a spoon. I just happen to like this because it gives me good control. So I'm putting it on over here. I actually have a smaller one. I don't love the bigger one so much. I like the small one because I have more control that way. All right, and all I'm doing is spreading a nice layer on my dough. If your filling is a bit thick, you can thin it out with some milk while it's mixing. When it sits in the fridge also, it tends to thicken a little bit. You can just always add a little bit of milk to thin it out. I really wish you could smell this because it smells really good. This is going to my friend. This is not staying with me. Okay, so I'm going all the way to the edge. And I'll explain to you why I'm very confident about spreading it all the way to the end and why I know it's not going to like ooze off. Okay, and the amount of babkas, this is another question I usually get. How many babkas does a filling fill? How many babkas does, yeah. It depends on how light-handed you are, how heavy-handed you are. If you like a lot of filling, it's going to fill less babkas. If you like it, very lightly filled, it's going to fill more babkas. So I would say like 2, 3, yeah, I'd say 3, roughly. Okay. So I got my strawberry filling on. So that is my wet base. Now, what I said before was I like to put something on top for some crunchy and texture, like bite. So over here, I have graham cracker crumbs. You can use graham cracker crumbs. You could take a graham cracker pie crust and mash it up, and you'll get crumbs like this. I actually really like doing that because they're nice, they're sweet. So I'm sprinkling that over the top over here. You can also take some freeze-dried strawberries. Trader Joe's has freeze-dried strawberries. Target has freeze-dried strawberries. Totally optional, but sprinkle them on over here like this. Add some nice color.
Naomi, is that half of your recipe or all of the dough recipe that we're looking at right now?
What are we looking at? This is 1 pound. This is 1 ball of dough.
How many balls did you make?
So you get 2 to 3 balls from the babka that we made, from the dough that we made.
Okay.
Okay. Next thing, we're gonna do. Good. Thanks. All right. Next thing over here. This lovely stuff. This is your dry topping. Remember, I had said that it's going to sort of seal everything inside. This is a mixture of vanilla pudding powder. I use the Awesome one. I like it because it doesn't turn yellow. Jello one turns yellow when you add liquid to it. Confectioner sugar and sugar. So you take a packet of this, you take 2 cups of confectioner sugar, and you take a cup of granulated sugar, you mix it up. It lasts indefinitely in your pantry. You use whatever you want to use. So number one ingredient in pudding is starch. Starch is a thickener. So when you sprinkle this on top, it sort of magically keeps everything contained. So I'm able to roll up my babka and I don't have to worry about the filling oozing out. It's quite impressive. So again, relative to how much the wet filling you put on, just sprinkle this on. Okay, just like that. And then you begin to roll. All right, so I'm going to show you just the basic way to roll it up. If you want more layers, you go from the longer side. If you want a thicker babka, if you go from the shorter side. So I'm going to start going from, I can just do the regular one. So we're going to start from the longer side over here. And what I like to do is I like to do little small rolls like so, just so I can get more layers. Okay, and as I'm rolling, I'm pulling it back towards myself. Again, this is totally optional. Depends on your patient's level. Right, you don't have to worry if your dough is going to rip. If it does rip, not a big deal, you'll just roll it over itself. All right. Okay, so once we get to the end, I sort of just like to pinch it closed. Again, because you give it that long rise time and you use a good flour, either a high gluten flour or a bread flour, you will be able to work with your dough. Your dough will work with you. It will not rip, it will not break, it will stretch. All right, so I have it like this, and you have a couple choices. You can make it into a horseshoe like this and twist it over itself. Or what I like to do is cut it in half in the middle, just like that. And you can see those layers, those gorgeous layers are over there. You could line it up. I like to do cut side to uncut side. And then you can twist it around itself like so. Or what I like to do is take a knife. I'm not cutting through, I'm just going to pretend I'm a surgeon and sort of just make like an incision over here, just slice. Just like that, and then twist it around itself. And then as it rests before you bake it, these layers open up beautifully. And it just makes a really nice presentation. So this is the parchment paper. Taking my dough, putting it on it. I have my pen. I'm not even going to spray because I'm putting this directly in it. Voila. Okay. I also have crumbs that I make. It's 1 cup of sugar. You can use confectioners or granulated. 1 cup of all-purpose flour. A tablespoon of vanilla sugar, optional. And 6 to 8 tablespoons, which is really, usually it's a stick of cold unsalted butter or margarine, but this is butter. And then you just work it together to make like a sand-like texture. I sprinkle it over the top. I put it off to the side. I preheat my oven to 350 degrees. And when the oven is preheated, I take this pan and I put it on a metal baking sheet. I usually put like for 3 babkas. Why a metal baking sheet? Aluminum doesn't conduct heat as strongly as metal. Metal is a stronger heat conductor. If I put this directly on the rack, it's going to take forever to bake. And also chances are the top is gonna bake, but the bottom is gonna be raw. And that's the problem a lot of people have with aluminum pans. When you put it on a metal pan, the heat is more even, so the top is going to get nice and brown, and the bottom is going to be, because the heat's up very like strong in the oven. So that's one shape that I'm doing. I'm going to put this off to the side. And I'm going to show you another shape with the regular cheese filling. And then we're going to do one more babka and with a chocolate filling. Any questions in the meantime?
Yeah, everyone wants to know the name of the mat.
Oh, it's a Roulpat, Roulpat. And if you are on Instagram, look up the Pepper Mill. They're in Brooklyn. They are fabulous and they're extremely helpful. And I've done demos there and I shop there and they ship. They ship very quickly. I ordered bannetons last week for my sourdough and they came. I ordered them on Monday and they arrived by Wednesday. And I just ordered a new mat today. Because Shavuot time, I usually take all my carved mats. I turn them dairy. So I ordered a new one.
And do we have the recipe for the topping? Was that also?
Yeah, that's all, everything is there.
Okay, fine. And for the dry chocolate filling, can you use frosting for the wet layer?
You never tried that actually. I don't know. I think like because it's like I know that I've taken frosting and I've melted it in the can and used it as like a glaze on cake, but I've never used it as in a babka as a whatchamacallit, as a wet base. I've used chocolate spread, like the Shachar one from Israel. I've used Nutella. Pesach Zman has a chocolate spread. Let me think of what else I used. Oh, another great idea is Philadelphia cream cheeses have a bunch of different like sweet fillings. There's like, I mean, not sweet fillings. They have a bunch of different like sweet cream cheeses. So there's like a brown sugar and cinnamon one. And you can just use that instead of like a regular cream cheese. And that one's delicious. There's a pecan one you can use. You just really have to keep, your eyes open and see what there is. You can also make this part, and you can use, which one is it? I used the Trader Joe's one, the vegan cream cheese. Wayfair has one. Wayfair I don't think has soy. I think it's pea protein. But you can use you can adapt it to however you want.
And if everyone's making it tonight and want to use it on Shavuot, should they freeze it like this or should they bake it first?
So I would bake it and then freeze it. That's what I always do. Anytime I bake babka, like yesterday I baked a bunch of babkas for customers, I freeze them right away. I glaze them and I freeze them. I know some people actually will make the dough and fill it and freeze it and then bake it, but I've never tried that, so I really can't vouch for that method. All right. So if you thought that was impressive, I'll show you another way to roll it out, which I think is even more impressive. All right. Okay, so notice how this one is just a different shaped rectangle right now. It's how it rolled out. I'm gonna take my regular, this is just the regular cheese one. Recipe is on the handout, my spatula. All right. This is very cool because I'm going to show you how to get like a ton of layers, and everyone always loves this one. Shavuot is just my ultimate favorite holiday for baking because I love anything dairy.
If you're doing a cinnamon babka, what would you use as the wet layer?
I would do melted butter, brown sugar. I wouldn't even melt it. I would just have it very, very soft, mix it with dark brown sugar and light brown sugar. I like to use the two types of sugars because they just complement each other. Too much dark brown sugar is just very strong, and too much light brown sugar, there's just nothing, to it. So I like to mix them together. Cinnamon, a little bit of vanilla, and you can put some salt in to cut the sweetness if you want.
And can you spell the name of the mat? People are searching for it on Pepper Mill.
ROUL_PAT.
And is it Roulpat pastry mat? Is that what it's called? Because they're saying they don't.
It says Roulpat.
Okay, just Roulpat. Okay.
But there's different sizes, so it's the XL.
Okay.
Okay. So I have my cheese. I'm gonna take what remains of my vanilla powder. Notice I'm not putting any like textures or crunchy things or whatever you wanna call them. And I'll show you why. Okay. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to bring the long side towards the middle, like this. I'm gonna bring the other long side to the middle, like this. All right. I'm gonna take the bottom part to the middle, like this. Are you with me? Are we good? All right, so it looks like this. Now, I'm gonna press it down because I wanna let out any air that there is. And I also didn't add any of the textures or the crunchy things because I'm gonna roll, all right? If I have anything that's like chocolate chips or whatever, when I roll it out, the dough is going to rip. So then very lightly, I'm just gonna roll it. Okay, and you notice how like cheese isn't spilling out? It's nice and smooth. Okay, I'm gonna turn it over. And again, you just want to get it into what looks like a rectangle. However, you know, as thin as you can get it without it ripping.
I have a question about someone made your wet cinnamon filling for the wet layer. And what should they do for the second layer for the dry vanilla?
It's really whatever you want. If you want to use the dry vanilla with it, that's cool. If you want to use the chocolate with it, cinnamon chocolate is delicious. It's really totally your preference. There's no rules on it. Okay. So we have this. Gonna take some more of this cheese stuff.
Also, do you have any quick tips for not getting so gooey and oozy? Someone's trying it so many times and it always gets so gooey. Is she putting in too much?
What does? Yeah, if you're gonna put in too much, it's going to sink and it's going to like ooze out. It's really just about balance. I like to have like a good dough to like filling to dough ratio. I mean, it won't be bad.
And would you ever use this dough for challah?
No. This is what they call it. Well, challah isn't enriched dough, but this is like, yeah, it's a little bit much for challah. Okay, but again, you can do whatever you want. I just haven't done that. All right, so I have that cheese filling there. I'm gonna add a little bit of white chocolate. Sprinkle that over the top. It's just shaved white chocolate. And because I don't have any more of the white stuff, the white filling, I'm gonna use chocolate because, you know, there's no rules. So this is a white chocolate cheese babka now. How's that? Okay. Now I'm gonna just take the short end over here, roll it up. Right, so I got like a nice log over here. Take my bench scraper. Then you have like tons and tons of layers going on. So I don't know if you see all those layers, but they're there. Parchment paper. twist it. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. Just smush it together like that. And it just takes the shape of your loaf pan.
And is that
You could use
cocoa
this.
or chocolate?
Pardon?
Cocoa or chocolate, they're asking.
This is the dry filling. So we're gonna get to that now. This is the chocolate dry filling. So when we go back to our fillings, see we have the sweet cheese one. Underneath we have a dry vanilla, which was a confectioner sugar, and the pudding mix. There's a dry chocolate lava filling. So that is the dry chocolate one that I sprinkled on the top before I twisted it. I'm gonna put this on the side. All right, and now we're gonna go over the dry chocolate one and how to turn it into a wet filling. So the dry chocolate filling is 2 cups of Dutch cocoa. So you have natural cocoa and you have Dutch cocoa. What's the difference? Natural cocoa is just, it's a very rich, it's a very like nice and rich, it's very bitter actually. It has like a nice bitter kickback. A Dutch cocoa has something called alkaline added to it, and the alkaline sort of neutralizes the flavor, and it just brings out a much richer flavor, less acidic, less bitter. So there's 2 cups of that. Where am I? Yeah, 2 cups of that. 2 cups of confectioner sugar, which is powdered sugar. 4 cups of regular sugar, and a package of instant chocolate pudding powder. I use Jell-O pudding powder. It makes about, you mix it all together, it makes about 8 cups. You're not using it all. Again, it lasts indefinitely in your pantry in a Ziploc or in a Tupperware. So you got this big bag of this chocolate, you know, mixture. Seal the bag, mix it all together, and then with that, see that's how it looks all together. To make the wet filling, you can take out 2 cups of it. This is 1 cup of it, and you add boiling hot water, and that sort of dissolves the sugar granules, and oil, which makes it nice and spreadable. So I showed you over here to make the wet one, measure 2 cups of this mixture here, and then you add a 1/4 cup of oil and a 1/4 to 1/2 cup of boiling water. So I have my oil over here. Here's just regular canola oil. Because this is only 1 cup of the filling, I'm gonna add 2 tablespoons because 1/4 of a cup is 2 tablespoons. That's about as good as math as I get. And boiling hot water. Yeah, it's not so boiling anymore, but it's fine. I'm gonna do 4 tablespoons. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. Then I'm going to take a spatula and I'm going to mix it together. Now here's the fun thing. Instead of using boiling hot water, use coffee and you'll have a Java lava filling. You can use a little bit of boiling water just to dissolve the sugar, and you can use alcohol. So I've done boozy babka bakes, and you can use like a coffee liquor. You can use a chocolate liquor. You can use hazelnut. You can really just do whatever you want with it. It's lots of fun. All right, mix it, and it turns into a wet filling. All right, so if your filling is too thick, you can add some more hot water. If your filling is too thin, add more of the chocolate powder. That's the beauty of this. Also, as it sits at room temperature, it will thicken. If it thickens too much, add more hot water. You can store leftovers in the fridge, covered. Use it at a different time by adding hot water. Okay, so there is my chocolate filling. And you saw how that happened, right? 2 cups of Dutch cocoa, 2 cups of confectioner sugar, 4 cups of granulated sugar, a package of instant chocolate pudding powder, measured out a cup of it, added some oil, hot water, boom. Instant, spreadable, delicious chocolate goodness. I'm gonna actually add a little bit more of the water because like I said, it wasn't so hot. And I'm gonna set it aside and roll out another piece of dough. Any questions on this filling? Silence.
I don't think so. There was a question about how long does the sweet cheese filling last in the fridge with a raw yolk?
I don't know because I usually go through them all. I go through it pretty quickly.
And which method of rolling gives you the most layers?
So the one that I showed you with the sweet cheese. I could do it again with this one if you want to see. I'll show you again. Where is my lap? Here. All right. As your dough sits out, like any refrigerated dough, it's going to soften. So you might have to start adding some flour to your work surface. That's why I like working with a cold dough. Much easier to work with a cold dough than a dough that is warm, which is why I recommend allowing your dough to rise in the, try to clean up and be like, sort of organized. Which is also why I love this mat, because it just keeps everything like, you know, together. I'm gonna get some more flour. All right.
And there's a
Put some
question
flour
about
there.
the puddings. The vanilla pudding is regular and the chocolate pudding recipe is instant, or?
No, they're both instant. The vanilla one that I use is awesome. I just like it because it doesn't change colors. So again, like the Jell-O brand, it turns yellow and it's just really not the most appealing color. And this one is nice and neutral. If you happen to see, you could find it on Amazon, Godiva has a line of pudding. They're Parve and they're instant. They have a white chocolate vanilla bean one, delicious. So you can use that one and the vanilla one interchangeably. And Hershey's also has like a Parve.
How long should they wait after taking dough out of the fridge before working with it?
If it's soft, like if your dough has butter and you take it out of the fridge right away, chances are it's going to be like very, very hard. So you want to just, you know, remember when you saw at the beginning, so it was sort of like pliable. I mean, it shouldn't be warm, but you shouldn't have to like struggle with it. It's really just about feel. So if you can start like, you know, molding in like, you know, it should be pliable. Like for example, like this is the dough I just made, right? I put it on the side. You see how that is just not a cooperative dough? Like it really needs that rise. Your dough should not be like this. Your dough should just be nice. And again, like that's why I'm really big on that, you know, on this longer rise. And it's a process. So it's like you can make the dough tonight and go to bed and then work with it tomorrow. Or you can make the dough and freeze it and work with it another time. Okay.
So Naomi, the biggest question again is with the mat, because everyone's searching on Peppermill. I don't see it. So do you just—
No, just message them. You have to message them. Just DM them on Instagram and they will answer you right away. They are the nicest ladies. Again, like not sponsored. I pay for all my stuff there. They are just the nicest people and they're so helpful. Just DM them. It's not going to be on their web. Like I don't know if it's on the website. Just DM them.
Okay.
And I'll message them after and I'll let them know to check their DMs.
Well, then that was the hottest question of the night.
Yeah, I know. I was like, okay. I'm glad I ordered mine today, by the way. Just let you know. That's why, like, I posted in my stories. I'm like, reminder, Peppermill, like, send me my mat. They have my credit card on file. Last week I ordered stuff from them too. Okay, so here's my dough. It looks like a square this time. It's fine. Again, there's no specific, you know, there's no rules. It's okay. Here's my chocolate filling. I hope everybody learned something tonight as opposed to like that. Okay. So putting this over here and I'm spreading. Okay, you see the consistency is lovely. And I'll show you again how to get those crazy layers. And again, you don't have to make your own filling. You can use chocolate spread. A really, really delicious and fun filling is to make a Duncan Hines chocolate cake, right? And then you just let it cool. You put it in your food processor with some oil and you can use milk or whipping cream or whatever, and you puree it and you make a spread. It's like a chocolate cake spread. You could put a little bit of alcohol in there. I'm good with that. Oh, you know what's really good? I found these Ben and Jerry. So you know how they have like cookie dough ice cream? They sell the cookie dough, frozen, edible, raw cookie dough. So I put that in a babka today. They had a half-baked one with like little brownie, the brownie pieces and cookie dough pieces. Thought that was really cool. Okay. So I have this on my dough. Gonna take some of the chocolate, sprinkle that over the top. All right, so you can use your fingers and just sort of spread that out. Okay. So again, you could start from either side. Because this is more of like a square, more or less like equal. Usually I start from the longer side, bring that to the middle. Then I bring this to the middle. And then I just fold in the sides. It's not pretty, but it is delicious.
What's the chocolate powder you're spreading? Can you remind everybody?
Yes, it is the dry chocolate lava filling that is on your handout, your recipe. It is composed of 2 cups of Dutch cocoa, 2 cups of confectioner sugar, 4 cups of granulated sugar, 1 package of instant chocolate pudding mix, 110 gram package, and 4 tablespoons of vanilla sugar. Mix everything together, and then that is your dry chocolate. And then your wet chocolate is made of the same exact thing. You just take 2 cups of it, you add boiling water, and you add oil, mix it till it's spreadable, and that is your wet chocolate filling.
You always use a wet and a dry filling?
Always a wet and a dry. The wet is your base, and then the dry sort of like, because of the pudding, there's starch in pudding, and that acts as a thickening agent.
How long can the dough stay in the freezer?
2-3 months. Yeah, I'd say 2-3 months.
And can they use Hershey cocoa if they live somewhere?
If you could find the Hershey dark cocoa, like the special dark, that's the Dutch one. But if you only have the regular cocoa, that's fine. Okay.
And is this filling enough for just 1 babka or the 2 to 3, the recipe that you gave?
Again, like it depends on how heavy-handed you are. I would say 2 to 3. But if you like a lot of chocolate, you know, you might want to double it and do, 4 cups. Take 4 cups of the dried powder. But you have 8 cups of the dried cocoa of the dry chocolate powder. So, okay. So you see this, how everything is nicely inside. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna take this was only a cup. So this one is filling, 1 babka. So 2 cups would probably do 2 babkas for me. But it's really just about how generous you wanna be with the chocolate. Or how thin you've made the chocolate, or how thick you made the chocolate.
So when we're talking about thickness, someone mentioned that they just made the cheese filling with the pudding and no egg, and it's very thick. What can she do?
So you can add a little bit of milk, and it'll thin it out. Milk or cream or water even. If something is too thick, always add liquid. If it's too thin, add something that's if your cheese when it's too thick, just add milk to it. Okay, I'm gonna take some of these micro mini chocolate chips.
Yum, hers looks so good.
Sprinkle it on. Okay, this is the dry chocolate one. Sprinkling it on. Okay, so I'm gonna roll up from the shorter end. Okay. So we have this over here. You see how I have that log again? My bench scraper. If you're going to use a mat, you're going to want to use a bench scraper and not a knife. A knife will cut through your mat, and you don't want that. Okay, do you see the layers? There's a lot of layers going on. Okay, do you see that? Then you twist. There's your babka. Parchment paper. It's actually really pretty. Into here. And here you have this. You can see the sides. And some crumbs on top. And again, so we have this one. We have the strawberry one. And we have the white chocolate and chocolate one. The white chocolate cheese with chocolate. And again, I'll put some crumbs on that. And then sometimes, like, if you want to make sure you know what's actually in your babkas, you might want to put a little reminder on your crumbs. So for example, this one is chocolate, so I'll put some chocolate chips on top. This one has the strawberries, so you can like crumble a little bit of the strawberries on top. These will darken in the oven, but just in general. And this one had that white chocolate, so I'm going to take some of the white chocolate and sprinkle it on top. And I'll put some of the chocolate chips also. And again, you're going to bake these on a metal baking sheet. You'll put them, the three of them together side by side. You can trim down the parchment paper, and every oven is different. So if you're going to look through the recipe, so here's your crumble recipe. So it's 1 cup of confectioner's sugar or granulated sugar, a cup of all-purpose flour, 1 tablespoon of vanilla sugar, again, that's optional, 6 to 8 tablespoons of cold cubed unsalted butter or oil. And again, start with less, you can always add. And you want to get a nice wet sand-like consistency. And again, you can throw in some sprinkles or chocolate chips if you like, and you can add some cinnamon, however you like it. Then we talked about how to shape and roll the babka, so that is on it as well. If you have any questions about that, let me know. Cover and let it rise. I left it uncovered. It's not, I would say more in the cooler months to cover it and let it rise. In warmer months, it rises pretty quickly, just sitting at room temperature. Preheat your oven. Again, the metal baking sheets to catch any spills. And for the heat conduction, again, the metal pan. Okay, so every oven's different. So I can't tell you that your babka is going to be ready in half an hour. And I can't tell you that your babka is going to be ready in an hour. It all depends on your oven. Some ovens are stronger than others. So what I like to do is after half an hour, I will rotate the pan. So I'll just turn the pan, I'll do a whole 180 and turn the pan so there's an even baking. I don't bake on convection. You can if you want. Your oven should adjust on its own. So you set it to 350, it should adjust itself to 325. And if you smell burning, check on your babkas. Even if it's after 20 minutes, check on your babkas. The way that you know that your babka is ready is your top should be golden brown. All right. If you want to use a thermometer, if you happen to have one, any instant read food thermometer should register about 198 degrees. And the best tip that I can give you is do not cut into your babka when it is hot. If you cut into it, all the filling will ooze out and it will be raw inside. And it'll be raw inside because your babka will continue baking as it cools. So even when you take it out, that top should be nice and golden brown. And you know, let it cool completely. I would even let it sit out overnight if you're baking it at night, and then put it in a bag the next morning. But you don't want to put it away when it's hot because it's gonna get all soggy and, you know. But that's really, you know, how you know your babka is done. Another question people usually give me is their babka is like it sinks in. Why does it sink in? Oftentimes it sinks in, number one, if it's raw. But usually it's because there's a lot of filling inside. So they'll just sort of like put a ton of like filling inside, a lot of the wet filling, a lot of like, you know, chocolate chips, a lot of sprinkles, a lot of cookie pieces, and all that will just sort of like, you know, it's heavy. Your babka's gonna sink in. Doesn't mean it's bad, it just means it's gonna sink in. But if you have that nice golden brown top when you press down on it, it shouldn't, you know, your babka's usually done. Like my oven, like I don't have a great oven, 350, I would say about an hour, like 45 minutes to an hour. But again, you should know your, like, get to know your oven. And that's the same thing with challahs also. You know, I like to bake them in either a metal loaf pan, or I'll take aluminum pans and put them on a metal cookie sheet so that I have that even heat conduction going on. Questions? Very quiet.
So, I mean, there are a lot of questions that people are going to want you to they're going to watch the recording afterwards, so they'll be able to watch it.
Okay.
So just a couple of quick questions.
Sure.
Do the cheese babkas need to be refrigerated after they're cooled?
So once they're baked and they're cooled, I freeze them. I put them in a freezer bag and I freeze them right away.
Okay. And then can you use these recipes for babka bites, for small babkas?
Yeah. Yeah. So basically you roll it out into that long strand, and instead of like cutting it in half and like twisting it together, you just cut them and then you put them on like either a parchment lined baking sheet or in like little mini muffin cups.
Okay. And most of the comments are how amazing you are, Naomi. I mean, you
I
are,
hope so.
are terrific, best baker. You should
Thank
only
you.
see there's a huge fan club. We're definitely one of your biggest fans. But we've been on for a while, and if there's anything that you want to add, you're amazing. Coming in, this was fabulous. Everything you
I
should
could,
know.
but honestly, like straight up, I couldn't do this without you. It's like, that's really what it is.
Everybody's enjoying you. Everyone's loving you. Everything you
Thank
made
you.
looks gorgeous. I'm starving. They want to
Don't
know.
make me cry.
They want to know the size of the loaf pans, and then I'm going to let you go.
Oh, it's a 2-pound loaf pan. They're very strange how these things are made. The brand is, what brand is this? Something Jetfoil. It's Jetfoil, Jetfoil. These are the 2-pound sizes. There is a smaller size. Okay, so when I used to do demos like with real people in front of me, everybody would make.
Naomi, this is the
No, I mean like, you know what I mean.
This is
No, you know, actually, I honestly like this better because I feel like everyone really gets to like watch what I'm doing, and you get to rise your own dough at home. When I did the other demos, you know, like you'd watch me make it, but you didn't really get a feel for it on the spot. Now you're getting a feel for it on the spot, and you're able to ask your questions. But there is a smaller loaf size pan. It's called a 1-pound size. I don't know why, I don't know where they come up with these sizes, but they're very small, but they're very cute for like, you know, little mini babkas. So if you want to do an activity with your kids, you'd probably get six little, I would divide into 6 1-pound portions. No, 6 half-pound portions of dough, and then make them in the 1-pound mini pans. But I love this size pan, number one, because it really rises up nicely and you get that nice height. And I'd rather have like that nice height than like a longer, you know, denser babka. But I couldn't do this without all of you. So that's really what it is. So thank you. Because when this whole thing started and like all these demos like were I was like, okay, now what? What am I gonna do? And I'm like really, everyone's support is just, it's beyond anything I could have ever imagined. So I hope, you know, now that I'm home, I get to, you know, create more and more and like test out more and more stuff and share it with all of you.
Well,
So
definitely something that's good for our mental health. So we thank you.
thank you.
We wish you a happy holidays and all good things and continued good health. And we're going to be in touch with you. This is only the beginning. Naomi, thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
You guys are great. Have a good night. Get some rest and stay tight.
Thank you.
We'll be back.
You guys are awesome. Thank you.
Stay
Wait, send me
safe.
pictures of your babka.
Thank you. Naomi, it was nice seeing you.
I get to see
Thank
you.
you.
I'm really excited to like.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Love to Ariella Shafran.
What?
My love to Ariella Shafran.
Oh, okay.
Naomi, I'm beautify you, baby. It was amazing.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming. Feel free to message me. Now I'm calm and I'll answer DMs. Today was a little bit crazy.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Have a wonderful night.
Thanks, ladies. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, Naomi.
Bye.
Stay well, stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks, ladies.
Jared. Thank you.